Hi friend, David here from Learn Christmas Lighting and Above AVL. And in this video, we're going to talk to you guys about automating DMX lighting, fog machines, and anything else that runs DMX with physical controls, with interactivity. So if you're doing a Halloween show, if you're doing a Christmas show, if you're doing a walkthrough display, if you're doing something in a public area where you want some interactivity between lighting or fog or bubble machines and people, this is the video for you. So one of the things we see as being with Learn Christmas Lighting and Above AVL, Learn Stage Lighting, all these brands we have, is there's a real need for people to understand DMX-based lighting, that is lighting you can control, and not only lighting, but also DMX-based fog machines and bubble machines and anything that can plug in via DMX, and being able to understand how to trigger that stuff so that you can use it as part of a larger display. Okay, so that you can use that with interactivity, whether that be a haunted house or something else. So in today's video, I want to go over really 3 ways, kind of a basic, intermediate, and advanced, that you can control these types of lights in your situations. Because the thing we hear from people when we talk to folks that do haunts or do Christmas displays, do interactive outdoor stuff, is they oftentimes either just get DMX lights or fog machines and use the simple remotes, just put them into a standalone mode where they're just a single color and go with that. Or they use some interactivity, but they've been limited by whatever device they're using, that it can only do so much, and then they get stuck. And so in this video, I want to talk about just that, whether you're brand new to interactivity with DMX lights, whether you've done some before, this is the video for you. So to begin, we got to talk about DMX lights and what type of DMX lights can be controlled in a haunt, in a Christmas display, something like that. Okay, so the cool thing about DMX is it's very generic. So if a light, if a fog machine, any type of device uses DMX and has DMX plugs and connects to a DMX-based system, that means any DMX control box can technically control it. Now there's some nuance there as to the fact that, you know, when you've got things like moving lights, sometimes the more basic lighting controllers aren't going to do a great job of controlling them, but they physically can, okay? And so that's an important first step to know. All right, so if it has DMX, you can control it with DMX-based boxes, etc. Okay, so then the question becomes, you know, whether you come from a background like me of stage lighting, working with stage lighting control systems, they really don't work well with interactivity most of the time, or whether you come from the other side. Maybe you run a haunted house, maybe you're a decorator that does holiday displays, and you want to build interactivity into what you do, and you're not sure how, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is these little boxes. This is the PicoDMX from FrightIdeas.com. We don't even sell it. You can just go get it from them. And this is kind of the first and simplest way to control things, to have interactivity. And it gives us a really good example to jump off of for our first, to really get you started. So when you think about interactivity, basically any box like this is going to have a little green terminal block like this that typically provides 12-volt power and then has a contact. So it's got an in and it's got a ground. And whenever you break that contact, like if I step on this mat here, the switch is broken. Okay, and when you do that, you see my light changed colors. In this particular controller, it started a sequence that I think is about 10 seconds long. There it goes back to ready to red. So when you stop it, then, or when you start it rather, there's a light that's going to show up on the box showing that you triggered it. And then the lighting scene, as you saw, whatever's recorded or saved onto the device, onto the PicoDMX box, that's what plays back. And then your lights just go with DMX out. Okay, you plug DMX out into your first light, into your second, etc. The addressing, what number the DMX talks on, and the order of the wiring really doesn't matter. That's independent of each other. Okay, and so this is really, a box like this is really the simplest way to get started with basic triggering of DMX lighting. Now, boxes like the PicoDMX definitely have their shortcomings. No, they're a basic box. So the way these work basically is on the PicoDMX, there's an SD card slot. You can put in an SD card, you can buy one from them, okay, when you order the PicoDMX. And that SD card allows you to go with their director software and control up to 32 channels of DMX. So this is not often a great option if you're controlling moving headlights, because they use a lot of channels. Same if you're controlling a bunch of lights, it's very basic. The other thing about the PicoDMX is it has one trigger input. Okay, so a trigger, let's talk about that, can be basically any type of switch. So anything that works with interactivity. So it could be literally simple. I've actually got, sitting down here, literally just a quick test rig that I use sometimes, which is just a household light switch, right? Not hooked up to regular 120 volt power at all, but just a switch, you know, so it touches the wires together basically, and then it takes them apart, right? And I can wire that in to boxes like this PicoDMX. But when it comes to interactivity, more often than not, a light switch is not really what you're looking for, but you're looking for something like, you know, this touch mat, as I totally pull the whole PicoDMX off the table, right? So you're looking for a touch mat where you stand on it like I did, just a step-on mat, or a button, or like I have right here, a motion sensor, right? This is actually a PIR sensor, meaning that it detects infrared heat. It detects people and animals, and that one's waterproof, so you can use it outdoors, right? But there's motion sensors, there's beam sensors where, you know, someone steps in front of the optical beam and it triggers. And so there's a lot of options of sensors that you can plug into the terminal blocks on devices like this PicoDMX. Again, as we noted, the PicoDMX is great for simple things, right? Single sensor, step on, step off, it runs its sequence, which this one is about 10 seconds that I built into it, and then it goes back, right? Great for a quick haunted house gag, you want somebody to step on something and a fog machine shoots off, etc., right? Totally good for those type of applications, but when you want multiple sensors controlling things, or maybe you even take it to the level of wanting to randomize what happens when a sensor gets tripped so it's not the same thing every time, that's when you're going to need to go deeper. Okay, so the next way we can kind of trigger with multiple sensors, if we're looking to do that, and here I'll just go ahead and plug this in quick, is we need something maybe that has some more trigger inputs. Okay, and so here we have, as I come back into the frame, a Chauvet DMX RT-4. Now, you may be familiar, which of course I just unplugged, you may be familiar with the Chauvet DMX RT. It is an older box. It's a popular box, and yes, I just triggered my sensor, so it is playing right now. But the DMX RT is an older box from Chauvet, which is a lighting company. Okay, and what it enabled you to do is basically record in little DMX sequences. So you would have some sort of lighting console or software, you would bring it in, you would record it, save those recordings. You can save a number inside the box, and then when the trigger was triggered, same kind of trigger as the PicoDMX. It's actually the same size plug, which is awesome, because you can interchange the two just like quick, without touching the wires, without having to get a screwdriver out or anything. And it enabled you to just, you know, play things, play them on a loop, trigger them with interactivity as we showed here, etc. Okay, great box. This spring, they discontinued it. That's early 2023. They came out with the DMX RT-4, which has a lot of advantages, okay? The first thing you'll notice, of course, is the 4 part. So there are 4 sensors here for triggers. So just as a quick example, as my motion sensor, my PIR reboots, I've got one here where I've just hardwired it to itself. So that sensor is constantly closed there. And if I set it inside the settings as a normally open sensor and it's closed, it will trigger constantly. Okay, next, I have nothing. Then I have my PIR sensor, and then I have nothing again. And so in the menu, and we actually have a review and a setup guide on Learn Stage Lighting gear that goes into, that channel goes into a little more detail, so you can check that out. Basically, you can do things like have, this motion sensor. I'm gonna sit here, ready for it. Hold my hand here until it senses. There it goes. It triggered the DMX, boom. Now it's gonna play whatever we recorded. So just like the PicoDMX, though it uses a software to set up the DMX channels instead of recording it like this one does. Here, I'll do it again. Just like it, these sequences can either be a very simple sequence where something's just on, like we did here. There can also be background sequences where is what the light does when it's not on, like the PicoDMX, I had turned green. When I stepped on the mat, when it finished its sequence, I had turned red for ready, right? The DMX RT-4 is very similar in that regard, in that you can set one of the triggers as basically a background sequence. The other three could be triggers, or all four could be triggers. And then you can have a whole bunch of DMX lights hooked up, a full universe of 512 lights, record different scenes in there, and as the different triggers are triggered, as you step on the mat, somebody presses a button, you activate a motion sensor like I've got here, then you're able to trigger one light, two lights, multiple lights, and be able to have different scenes play back that you've recorded. They can be static, they can be moving, okay? And so that's another great option where you're really able to go a little bit deeper, etc. What if you want to go even deeper, right? You look at something here, like the DMX RT-4, and you say, okay, this is fine. I like that I can trigger things in. I've got 4 trigger inputs, and so therefore I can have, up to 512 channels of lights controlled by 4 trigger inputs. But some of the downsides are there's only 4 inputs. It's only a single universe of DMX. So if you've got like a bunch of pixels in your display that are going to take up tons of universes of DMX, then it's not going to work. What's the next step? Well, the next step really kind of depends on your needs and outcome desires. Okay, what we usually recommend is then stepping up to a professional lighting console or software. And don't let professional scare you on a price level. Because it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be hundreds of dollars, not thousands. Just the key is having a professional grade lighting type software that is able to take inputs from external devices. Because of that, we really like Onyx. We also use the Control Suite a fair amount, which is a great piece of software. That enables you to do show control type stuff. So like, say I had a trigger come in and I trigger the show control software to pick a random scene and then fire my lighting console. That's one great option. But either way, if you have a larger setup and you have a lot of triggers and you're looking for ways to lay that out, let us know. store@learnchristmaslighting.com. You can always check us out at learnchristmaslightingstore.com, where we've got the fullest range of some of the most reliable and cost-effective waterproof lights for your outdoor entertainment needs, whether that's a haunt, it could be indoors, it could be a Christmas display, it could be a walkthrough, indoors or outdoors. We love to help people get all the things they need to make awesome displays for their customers and themselves. So if you like that, head over to the Learn Christmas Lighting store, learnchristmaslightingstore.com, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks.